Hi everyone! Thank you so much for coming out to this event, the Medicinal Plant Walk, as part of the 2Rivers Festival here in Guelph. My name is Zeifs Millicent, and I'll be your facilitator for tonight. A little bit about me. I am a herbalist here in Guelph, and I'm currently I'm finishing up my third year out of a 4-year program with Dominion Herbal College. It's clinical herbal therapy, so as of August 2021, assuming all goes well with school, I'll be graduating and I'll be a clinical herbalist. So this is a bit different in that I learn about the medical side of things, so anatomy, physiology, herb-drug interactions, some nutrition. It's a very comprehensive program to learn about the plants and also about the body and how herbs work in the body. So with that said, I'm just really excited to tell you and share with you and talk to you about some plants here along the Speed River tonight. So yeah, I'll turn it over to Rebecca to give you a brief overview of the 2Rivers Festival.
All right, welcome to the Medicinal Plant Walk, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful day. My name is Rebecca and I'm one of the volunteers for the festival and will be your moderator for today's event. This event is part of 2Rivers Festival that celebrates and appreciates the Speed and Eramosa rivers. And I just want to give a huge hearty thanks to Zips for sharing her passion for our rivers with you today. And thanks to all of you for attending this event. I'm just as excited as all of you to learn about these medicinal plants that are found here right along our river. And this festival is organized and run by volunteers and involves many community organizations. Please support these organizations that are doing good work in our community, and also the advertisers and our event sponsor, who this year was the Guelph Outdoor School. And thanks to them, we are still able to make this event possible. So you can find out more about our event sponsor and to see the rest of our advertisers on our website or in our booklets. So far we've had 40 great events, so in a total we have 40 events, but there are still 10 events left, so definitely check those out and RSVP to the ones that are of interest. I highly encourage everyone, if you get a chance and you're free on Saturday, June 27, we are hosting our festival celebration event and we'll be featuring a special mini documentary to award all the water advocacy work of Hugh Whitley and give him the Wellington Water Watchers Lifetime Achievement Award. So once again, I hope that throughout this festival and attending all these events that you do fall in love with our rivers and will want to further protect them. Now just a bit about today's presentation. I do want to mention that they are being recorded. So if you don't feel comfortable with that, you can turn off your video at any time. I will also be moderating the Q&A. So at the end of each plant introduction, there will be an opportunity to ask questions. You can just stick them in the chat box on the right, and I will be reading them out loud for everyone to hear and Zips to answer. We do encourage you to unmute yourselves as well if you want to further clarify your questions. So now I will be passing it back to Zips, and I hope you guys enjoy.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. A couple more things I want to go over before we start tonight. So one aspect is about the wildcrafting. So wildcrafting is the gathering of plants just gathering them in an area that's not cultivated. So wildcrafting is then what we're doing, or what we would be doing if we were gathering plants. So if you're in a forest or just out in nature where plants grow wild, then you're wildcrafting. So within that, there's 3 things I want to emphasize about wildcrafting. You can learn a lot more about different guidelines and stuff like that, but 3 things I'm going to focus on just as an overview tonight. One is about how much you harvest. So being conscientious that if you're harvesting plants, you're not wiping out the population of an area, right? So being respectful of the population. And there's different guidelines depending on which plant you're gathering. So for instance, if you're gathering garlic mustard, you know, it's invasive by some people who define it as invasive, and it's very plentiful. So you can usually harvest a lot of garlic mustard, whereas something more like golden seal or plants that are endangered. And there's a list on the United Plant Savers website. They track endangered plants in North America. So yeah, just being aware of not taking everything, leaving some for the animals, ensuring it can regenerate next year. So having that awareness. Another aspect is the pollution. So, are you harvesting near a power plant or near a polluted waterway or all these kinds of things? So as Arlene Slocum mentioned to me, this chunk of the Speed River here down along Wellington and at the boathouse kind of area may have been a landfill in the past. So that's another reason that we're not harvesting from here tonight or possibly ever. But just keeping in mind, what was the land used for before these plants were growing? Because a lot of times plants can be bioremediators and help to return nutrients to the soil and go from a wasteland to a different form of plants in there. So yeah, be aware of the chemical sensitivities or possible pollution for where you are. So for instance, you wouldn't harvest beside roadsides, so ditches and near the roads, because you have all the pollution coming off of cars and that sort of thing. And the other aspect I wanted to mention about wildcrafting or foraging is the respect piece of things. So alongside how much you harvest, you don't treat a plant as though it's to be used or is made purely for human consumption kind of thing. So they have their own lives and energy, and just respecting that. So some people will approach a plant and kind of ask it if it's okay to harvest. And sometimes you can feel a yes or no. People will also give an offering to the plant in terms of like some hair or some tobacco, depending what tradition you follow. So consider that as part of you move forward and are harvesting plants, how you interact with them, kind of on an energy level. And then last but not least, the other thing I wanted to just mention before we get started is I will be throwing some different words out tonight, which, it is English, so there'll be words. I promise there will be words. So for instance, tincture, infused oil, constituents, stuff like that. And I will define those as we go along because I realize that this intro could get really long and we don't need to spend all day talking because you want to see the plants. So let's get started with showing you different plants around the area, and I look forward to seeing your questions in the chat and yeah, having fun tonight. So our first plant of tonight is Motherwort, and we'll see how this goes with a tripod. All right, switching camera mode as you get a nice close-up of my fingers. Okay, so Motherwort, Latin name Leonaris cardiaca. This one comes up pretty early in the spring. It's one of the first to come out after the snow is kind of fading. Like in March, for instance, there's still snow on the ground. You can see this one coming up. Part of the identifying features, I personally find these kind of look like maple leaves, but they're a little more veiny. There's a very slight fuzz, and also noteworthy is that the stems are square. I'm not sure how much you can see that, but you can definitely feel it. So you can kind of see we're in, mid-June, so depending how seasons go, but at the top here, there's the very start of what will be the flowers. So the flowers come out the top, and I don't know if any of you have interacted with this before, but they're this kind of light pinkish purplish flower, and they almost feel a little bit like burrs. You can kind of see maybe there's a bit of spikiness on it. Yeah, so if you're harvesting this one, you're going to be harvesting the upper aerial parts. So that basically means the top third of the plant. And most people will use this in tincture format. And so a tincture is a plant preparation in alcohol. So for instance, gathering the upper third while it's in flower and then chopping it up as small as possible, putting the plant material in a jar, and then you're going to pour alcohol over it. Different plants have different constituents, which are kind of like ingredients, like the things that make up the plant. So there's different strengths of alcohol. So for those of you who, wine is what, 12%, and vodka can be 35 or 45%. So I'm not going to get into a whole lot of, how to prepare this plant exactly with this ratio. But if you have questions, I'd be happy to talk over email or anything else with that. So what is it for? The most important part. Motherwort is most commonly known as helpful with anxiety. So for instance, with the name Motherwort, it supports mothers. So if you have anxiety, whether acute anxiety, it can be really helpful for acute anxiety attacks in tincture form. It can also be useful for hypertension because it strengthens the heart so that the heart is more able to, yeah, pump and move. So that's really great. If you want another use for it, it's also considered a bitter. So bitter, in some ways self-explanatory, it tastes bitter. Surprise, we can all maybe relate to, oh, that tastes bitter. So bitters are used to stimulate digestion. And so for instance, if you buy bitters, you can buy, you know, a bitters mixture at a store, like a health food store, and then they will stimulate your digestion. So if you take, you know, a dropper full or two about 15 minutes before a meal, then your saliva starts, like you start salivating, gastric juices start, and the peristalsis, so your stomach movement, like it's like your digestion turns on. And arguably a comparison, it's like foreplay. So it's like you're ready to eat because your stomach is turned on and things are starting to move and stuff. So motherwort is bitter, and you'll notice that if you happen to dry it and take it as a tea, for instance, some people, you know, don't want alcohol-based preparations. Yeah, so I would focus this one on anxiety, potential hypertension, and also the use of bitters in terms of digestion. There's one thing I want to note in terms of motherwort, just to give an example of why you don't just take herbs willy-nilly. And you're probably kind of bored of staring at motherwort, so I'm going to flip it back to me, which seems weird to be like, I'm going to talk, but hi. So one of the things with motherwort is that with long-term use, it can cause thyroid function to decrease. So if you have a hypothyroid issue, you don't want to be taking it regularly because it can reduce your thyroid action. So that's part of why when you're considering medicinal herbs, some things are, you know, it's nutritious, go for it. And some things are, this could conflict with another condition you have. So it's good to be aware of interactions in your body about, yeah, what conditions you have or other medications. You know, herbs can affect how your body absorbs medications. We'll get to St. John's wort later about that. Yeah, that's all I'm going to go on for motherwort. Are there any questions at this point as of yet? I'm going to assume it's a no unless Rebecca jumps in. That seems like a safe assumption.
So I am just jumping in for a second here and letting everyone know, anyone who has questions, once again, just stick it in the chat box if you're here to hear that earlier, and then I can relay it back to Zips. So I have a question here from Sam Boer. He says, does it matter if you harvest the motherwort before or after flowers? So that's the first question.
Yeah, it's going to be most medicinally active to harvest it while it's flowering, so it's the optimal time. But if you miss it, it's not going to be bad, it's just going to be less potent. So some things you can't harvest past a certain date because it gets too toxic. Motherwort's not one of those. So I wouldn't, but if you know you really need motherwort and that's where you're at, then I would still get it. Yeah.
Okay.
Second
question, and once again, for the people asking questions, you can also unmute yourself when I relay the question back to Zips. So this one's from Julie. She's saying, can you use the flowers as well in a tincture?
Yeah, so I would use the flowers and the leaves. So that upper third chunk, you're going to get a mixture of leaves and flowers. So as you might have noticed on the plant, it has a progressive kind of leaf size going on. So let me throw that down for a sec. So the tops here are these cute little leaves. You know, they get these littler versions of themselves. And then lower down, they're larger here. So yeah, so you're gonna get the flowers mixed in with the leaves because you would take it maybe like here up kind of thing. So hopefully that helps clarify that. Yeah, thanks for asking.
Another question here from Daniela. Are there other plants that look very similar?
I would say that when you recognize motherwort, you're not going to confuse it because the square stem is very distinct. So the leaves might look similar to other things, but given the variegated and pointy aspect of it, you're not going to run into too much trouble. Yeah, so if that's our questions at. I just also wanted to note that for Guelphites, I am putting these cute little, maybe I don't know if it's little, orange flags next to the plants so that you can later walk around and, you know, look at it yourself. Ready to move on, I think?
Yes, I think we're ready.
Excellent. I'm going to flip the camera because I think it's more fun to look at plants than my face. So here we go. Maybe I should have hired some of these musicians here to provide a soundtrack. Anyways. So I'm going to go into a few things about different plant things. This is Motherwort again, just as another view of other examples. Yeah, so we covered tincture, which is a alcohol-based preparation of a plant. Other things you'll hear me talk about include infused oils. So some plants are, for a topical preparation, you would cut up the plant material and then put it into, you know, most commonly is olive oil. And so basically the plant constituents or ingredients leach into the oil, and then you have an infused oil. I'm going to do a brief pause here and attempt to lower the tripod. I'll get back to the oils in a minute. But down here, so we are Guelphites hanging out right here. This plant is called Coltsfoot. Let me get in there so you can know which one I'm talking about. This guy. So Coltsfoot is Tussilago farfara for the Latin name, and it is used as an antitussive. So you might see the similarity of Tussilago and antitussive. They both have the tuss aspect in them. So an antitussive means to stop coughing. So you can make a syrup of Coltsfoot, which is a more common preparation. Also use it as a tincture. So a syrup would be taking the plant material and then boiling it down, like simmering it on the stove, and then you would add sugar or honey as a preservative and as a thickening agent. So if you have a really bad cough, like a dry irritable cough kind of thing, then this helps to soothe it and reduce the coughing action. So yeah, you'll see it come up in the spring. It has yellow flowers that come up before the leaves. So there's going to be no flowers at this point because they're already done. And the other thing worth mentioning is that it is best to collect them later in the season because of the constituents. So one constituent here that is most noticeable is there's a small amount of pyrrolizidine alkaloids. And yes, it took me many months to figure out how to pronounce that. So those can be toxic to your liver. So that's why this is better for short-term use. Though given it's for a cough, you know, I would hope that the cough is short-term. Yeah, I just wanted to throw a quick shout out to Coltsfoot. I don't know if anyone has questions or comments. Part of why it's called Coltsfoot is because it looks like the shape of a colt's foot. It typically grows near water. So in Guelph Preservation Park, it is in the marshy areas, and we are, you know, right by the water. All right, onwards. The thing with plant walks, as you may soon learn, is that sometimes there's long stretches and sometimes you just go a couple feet. You could do a herb walk in, you know, 20 meters depending where you are. So I'm gonna start with this example because the leaves are so cute. This one is Burdock, and it is one of my favorites. Okay, you know, they're all my favorites, but seriously, I am kind of in love with this plant. The root is used typically, though you can tincture it. Yeah, you would know this plant because burrs, you know, they get caught on your sweaters. They have the hooking action of the Velcro burrs. So this is a biennial. So it is a 2-year plant. So the first year grows up out of the ground and it just has kind of a rosette at the bottom, at the base. And some people think it looks like rhubarb when it's, you know, in this format. I will show you other examples along the way of the larger ones. So the first year it's just kind of hanging out down low, and then the second year it sends up that next year of growth, which then will turn into the flowers, the burrs, and the seeds. So when you are collecting burdock, you want to harvest the root. And thing to note with harvesting roots is, well, think about where the energy of a plant is, right? So right now, it's growing leaves. Eventually it will grow flowers, seeds. Where's the energy? You want to collect plants when the peak energy is in that area. So in the case of burdock, we want the roots. What is it doing now? Sending energy out of the roots to the leaves. So in this case, you actually wouldn't collect it right now. So you harvest roots in the spring or in the fall. Some plants are really specific of it has to be the spring or it has to be the fall, but this is one that can be either or. So given it's a 2-year plant, you're going to go for the fall of the first year. So I'll be tracking these guys all over Guelph and my yard to see where they are and dig them up, after the first frost, because the frost is what sends the energy back into the roots. It's like, oh, it's cold, and then they get ready to overwinter. So all the energy goes into the root. So you can either do the fall of its first year, like this guy, or if you know where they are and see them coming up again, then you can do the spring of the second year, because again, it's been through the winter and it's coming up to start its second year of growth, so it still has the energy in the base until it comes up more. So right now, for instance, it's a bit too late, sadly, but we can do it later, so that's great. I find burdock is one of the things that's great about it is that it's so prolific that you can, harvest a lot of it, because there's, at least here in Ontario, burdock everywhere and people think it's a weed. So that's pretty great. I am going to keep talking about burdock as I walk, because I think it might be a little bit of a walk before that, but I think you guys can see it enough. It's got a slightly lighter bottom. It's a tiny bit fuzzy. I will talk more about the uses of it, but yeah, it does grow pretty big leaves, and we will see an example later of some of the larger leaves. So burdock, this root on this plant is a tap root. So as you dig it up, you're basically going to be going straight down. So just be prepared when you're shoveling, and also be mindful of how you are digging, and is it gravelly? Are you able to get deep enough? As you can imagine, it is most respectful to plants to honor what you're taking, kind of thing. So if you're killing the plant by taking it and you don't actually take all of it or use it afterwards, that's not ideal. So if you're going for the burdock, try to go for the ones that that you can harvest. So if it's too big and you're going to break it halfway through, then maybe go for a smaller one. What else on burdock? So I don't know how well you can hear me with this lovely wind. Ooh, I will answer that question in a minute. I just wanted to say about plant preparations. I will eventually get back to the oils, really. But with roots, if you're taking them internally in a water-based preparation, you are not going to make a tea generally. Why? Why can't you make a tea? Because roots are thick and hardy. They are very strong parts of plants generally, right? And so within that, oh geez, we're at the next plant already. Okay, I will talk about burdock and then we will get back to this. Okay, let's finish on burdock. I have so much to say about burdock. Okay, so roots, you're going to prepare in water as a decoction. What's a decoction? A decoction is basically a different version of a tea. So a tea or infusion, you have the plant material and you are going to pour hot water over it, right? Like a lot of us, probably most of us have made tea. So tea is usually made for flowers or leaves and like thinner parts of plants, because the goal with heat and with extraction is to pull the plant material out into the liquid so that you can drink the liquid and get all the good stuff, right? So tea is for the thinner parts, which is why you see the flowers and leaves in teas. And then the roots are thicker. So decoction is roots, barks, sometimes berries. Yeah, we'll leave it at that for there. So what is a decoction? It's a simmering of a plant. So let's say you want to make a burdock root decoction, and you totally should because it tastes good. I have some in my backpack, but I just keep talking, so maybe I'll bring it out later. So let's say you have dried burdock, which, by the way, Guelphites, they sell burdock at, when it's not COVID, at New Age. in the back in their bulk section, and also at Goodness Me. So you can check your local health food store and see if you can buy it in bulk. If you want to know about where you can buy it from to have it shipped, I can list off some retailers. So if you have the dried plant material, you are going to, and when, if in case it's not obvious, when it's dried, it is little chunks, like they're cut up into little pieces. It's not like a giant chunk of a hard root kind of thing. So you're going to take about a teaspoon of the dried root to a cup of water. That's your general ratio. I tend to not measure mine. And then simmer it on the stove. So you have it in a pot on the stove with a lid, turn it on high, bring it to a boil, and then you're going to, once it has that starting rolling boil, then you're going to turn it down to a simmer. So your goal is to simmer it for about 20 minutes and basically do a slow heat release of the constituents. One of the other things I love about burdock is that you can eat it. So I think, I don't know if it's Japanese, it's called gobo in their foods and stuff. So you can throw it in stir fries, you can throw it in soup. It's really great to include in bone broth, just throw it in with the bones. And so for instance, one of the things I do is that when I make the decoction and you've got the water in the pot and you've got these little chunks on the bottom, then I can drink the liquid and eat the little chunks. So I'll mix them with scrambled eggs or something, kind of just like throw it on anything. It doesn't have too much flavor. It's just kind of like parsnip, but not as bad as parsnip. I don't really like parsnip. Yeah, so I highly recommend it. Burdock is Arctium lapa, is the Latin name. And at risk of overwhelming you with burdock information, one of the other things I love about it is that it has a constituent of inulin. So what is inulin? You might have heard about it from other health food things. It's basically food for your digestive system in terms of the microflora. And yeah, so your ecosystem of your digestive system will eat the inulin, and then it will help with having the probiotics in your gut too. It's like, I think it's a prebiotic inulin. So yeah, so that's my spiel on burdock. I love it. You'll see it more later. I think we had a couple questions, so I'm going to finally pause and answer questions.
All right, so the first question I have here is from Carolyn, and she says, is burdock a native plant?
Good question. I think it is, but it's never crossed my mind to check. I will get back to you on that. Is that Carolyn Ross? Should I just email you? Probably.
Carolyn.
Figure it out later. I think Shannon, I think I saw another question come up, but I don't know which one.
And Shannon says, what is it good for?
Oh boy, the things I could say about this plant. Okay. So aside from the inulin and digestion side of things, I have found it personally really amazing for use with skin conditions. So if you have eczema or psoriasis or a rash or dry skin or something, okay, this might be a while. Hunker in, guys. It helps to clear your skin. So burdock is considered an alterative. Alteratives are detoxifiers. So unalterative is like a category of a plant, like a classification or a, I don't know, something it does basically. So as a detoxifier or blood cleanser, it helps to remove toxins from your body. So basically burdock helps to improve the function of your kidneys and your liver and your lymphatic system. So it's like this all-in-one amazing thing to improve your health. And one thing to note is that as a decoction of the root, it's kind of a long-term thing. Like if you take it for a week, you're not really going to notice a lot. But if you take it regularly for a month or 2 or 3, then you're going to notice more of a difference. So for me, there are times, admittedly, when I have eaten too much sugar or too much gluten, because whatever, I'm human. And then my hands flare up and I get these weeping, crusty, kind of like eczema, and they're itchy as crazy. There's this clear fluid that comes out, and we'll not go into too much detail here. And so I'll drink burdock root decoction, and it helps to slowly just like calm the system down. Some people also notice that if they have dry skin, there's 2 aspects of, well, probably more than 2, but 2 that I'm going to talk about now, of skin moisturizing. One is the water content, to hydrate your skin with water. And then another aspect is the oil content. So, sebaceous glands and having enough oil in your skin for being pliable and everything. So burdock can help to stimulate the oil balancing of your skin, which is really great. And yeah, it is a mild diuretic, so you might not want to chug a lot before bed. A diuretic is a herbal remedy that increases urination. So, you know, if you drink burdock and it's increasing your urine output, you know, usually not what we do right before bed, or want to, but I guess you could. Yeah, so I'd say skin conditions. Some people have found it helpful for arthritis or gout because it's just like generally detoxifying and toning. Yeah, and this one, in my opinion, disclaimer, is kind of great for everyone because it's just so nourishing and nutritive and helpful with that, like your overall health. So if there's like one plant you do something with after this, please let it be burdock because it tastes pretty good. And yeah, so while I'm here still talking about burdock, half the plant walk is burdock. Surprise. I'm not sure what I can show you. I should have got more of a clear jar. This is a burdock decoction I made this afternoon, which was really not my best. I'm still, you know, experimenting and learning. Learning is a lifelong thing. Maybe we should go this way and you can see through it. But that made it worse. Okay, I think you kind of get the idea of the general color. So this one's a bit greenish yellowish, you might notice, if anyone can actually see in the jar. I find that tends to happen when I overcook it. So it's like I bring it to a boil, the heat got too high, I left it rolling boil a bit too long, and then it turns this slight greenish, which is not harmful to my understanding, but it tastes better when it's this glorious deep dark red, like a ruby red. It's so nice. And I have a picture of that on my Instagram, for those of you on Instagram, planting.radiance. You can check it out. Yeah, so it's also kind of nice because then you don't really have to strain it. You just drink it, they sink to the bottom, and you can chomp on it afterwards. So yeah, any more questions on burdock, or should I stop talking about burdock?
I think that was it for questions, it looks like.
Awesome. Okay, how are we doing on time, by the way?
So it's 7:36, so we have about half an hour.
Great.
That's okay.
All right, this may be like a 4-plant
Yeah.
walk. Okay, and or I'll just run between plants. I just saw something come up in chat. Was that a question or no?
People are commenting and saying how much they love it, and
really?
And thanks for your clarity and abundant info.
Thank you guys. For those of you who don't know, Slash, can I just like pull a commercial here for a minute? I actually have not done a plant walk before. I've been to lots. I've spent years learning this stuff, but I have not facilitated a plant walk before. So the fact that you guys are here and paying attention, and I mean, I don't know how many people have quit and left, but I just really appreciate your presence, your attention, your patience. It's one thing to lead a plant walk and, you know, figure out what to say and stuff and try to be engaging. And it's another thing to try to do it on Zoom, hoping your internet stays, and with this new tripod and like headphones and people. And so thank you so much for sticking it out so far. Yeah, onwards. Okay, so as I conclude about burdock, surprise, there's another burdock right here. Okay, so we're still here, well fights, chilling. This is a larger one. So you can see the leaves get pretty big. For reference, I will throw my hand in this. Well, I guess under doesn't help, right? Like that's a pretty sizable leaf there. Yeah, still fuzzy. There's other things you can do with this plant. Like some people will use the leaves for burn remedies. Some people eat the stalks, blah, 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 lots of things. One plant I wanted to do a quick mention of, because we love all the tools of plants. Celandine, actually greater celandine. So I'm just gonna hop in here a bit so you can hopefully see these cute, brilliant yellow flowers. There's 4 petals. There's a little bit of this stamens. I know I said in the plant walk description there'd be some botany, and yeah, didn't really go back to my botany. So yeah, so there's a bit of those. So the 4 petals, there's not too many on each area. Yeah, did this rotate? Sorry, just one sec. Okay, we're back on landscape, good. So things to note with celandine. This is Chelidonium majus. So the leaves I find are pretty distinctive. I guess I should go a bit closer. They are lobed. I have learned that this plant likes to grow in acidic soil, which explains why it's popping up all over our yard in Guelph, near the spruce trees. Speaking of, anyone in Guelph want some celandine, you can come get some from my yard. Which brings us to, why would you want celandine? Well, there is a sap inside of here, sort of plant, which might take a minute to get out. See how well my camera can do close-ups. Kind of, sort of. Okay, let me just squish it for a minute. Or I'll put it on paper. So this sap latex thing, that's the technical term, by the way, is useful topically for warts. And for those of you who have had warts before, like the typical planter's wart I'm talking about, you know that they're kind of annoying to get rid of. And it seems sometimes that nothing works. So admittedly, I have not personally used this because last time I had a wart, I was a kid and didn't know a lot about plants. But I did use it on a toddler's foot a few years ago, and it seemed to help. Other thing about warts, fun fact, inside of a banana peel. Yep, ripe banana peel, inside layer, cut a chunk the size of your wart and stick it on there and change it daily till it falls off. So yeah, this is, especially with my screen so small, I'm like, can you see this? And it's blurry. Anyway, trust me, there's some goo that comes out and it's this bright orangey yellow. And I tried to squish some on paper so you can kind of see it. So it's kind of like dandelion in that way with the latex sap aspect, but it's this bright yellowish, orangish. Celandine can also be used for some liver and gallbladder conditions because it is very bitter. One of the herbalists I was training with uses celandine tincture for migraine headaches that are from gallbladder liver tension. So the bitterness helps to relieve the tension on the liver and gallbladder and thereby reduce the migraine. But I don't get much migraine, so I haven't tried that. Yeah, okay, celandine, done. Questions? I'm gonna go on turbo mode now. Well, maybe. No? All right, carry on. Oh, maybe.
No questions so far.
Okay, thanks. We should probably stick with the let me know if there's no questions rather than I'll just awkwardly talk for a minute while trying to figure if there are any or not. I'm gonna stay here for a minute because I think I'm gonna shortcut over there because let's not take the long route. And I'm gonna introduce you to this thing that you don't need an introduction to, which is, anyone? Anyone? This is where you participate and throw in the chat. What is this plant?
Dandelions.
Dandelions.
Ah, you guys rock. Okay, so yeah, it's dandelion. These ones aren't flowering, but they are big and they are tasty. So the thing with dandelion, leaves, wow. They're a bit bitter. So some people like them on salads. Oh right, this is not a foraging food walk. Anyway, you can also find them in grocery stores sometimes near the salad section. Not sure why people pay for them, but go for it. Two parts of the dandelion that I want to talk about particularly. Sorry if there's going to be crunching in the microphone now. Didn't plan that very well. So the leaves and the roots. Leaves you've probably seen before, and the leaves are more indicated or useful for the kidneys. So one of the things that's amazing about dandelion, which is less common, or one of the things it's more well known for, something, is that it's potassium sparing. What does that mean? It means that if you're drinking dandelion tea, then you're gaining potassium. So one of the problems with diuretic medications of a pharmaceutical kind is that they basically leach potassium from your body. So as you're urinating, you're losing potassium. And you need potassium in your body for various functions, which we'll not go into because it's past 7:30. But yeah, so the leaf is great as a diuretic, so it can help with kidney function. Yeah, and toning that. So another thing to consider about diuretics is that, so a diuretic, as we've, I think, said it once or twice or 5 times, is something that increases urination. So why would you want to increase urination? Because, you know, it's not always fun to run to the bathroom. But there are some things such as edema. So when you have the water retention, where you want to be excreting water from your body to reduce the puffiness. Sometimes in congestive heart conditions, there's also a need for diuretics to help with the function of the heart. So yeah, good to know. Eating them is great as a bitter, so if you don't want to buy bitters and you want to do the bitter thing to facilitate your digestion, then I highly recommend just chomping on some leaves before a meal. You can also do that with motherwort and some other things, but yeah, anytime you're walking around, chomp on dandelion, assuming of course that there are not lots of spray and chemicals and whatnot, dog pee. Yeah, so the root is, as you might know, sometimes used as a coffee substitute. Some people will harvest the root and dry it and roast it as a coffee substitute, as I cuddle up with plants here. But anyways, so the leaves, kidneys, the roots, liver. So the roots are a bit more bitter. And they also contain inulin, similar to burdock, so that you can have the microbiome in your guts improve. Yeah, so it's like a gentle stimulant for your liver to use the roots. So again, you can go for decoction by simmering the root to make a strong tea, so to speak, or you can use it as a tincture. So it can help to increase the flow of bile. So bile being, sorry, I don't know what you guys know and what you don't know, so if this is redundant, stick with me. So the bile helps with your digestion because it helps to emulsify fats. And you know, bile, like when you throw up, you can feel that acidity. So it can help to increase flow of bile from the liver and the gallbladder to, yeah, use the roots as a decoction or a tincture. So if you need to improve your liver function, dandelion root is a great one to go for. And Latin name, Taraxacum officinale, which as some people mention is because of, no, that's the dandelion. So dandelion, like dand as in dent, like French dental, dent, and lion as lion. So like tooth of the lion, which you can't see because I ate it and folded it up, but you know, they're pretty sharp, like lion's teeth. So not that you need a way to remember dandelion, but if you did, there you go. Yeah, so next up, I'm gonna cross this rather loud bridge. So if you need to grab a drink of water or go to the bathroom for a sec, now is your chance. Or throw all your questions in the chat.
Yeah. It's from Chris, and he asks, are these the same dandelions in yards?
Yes, absolutely. Just different size.
And then Linda asks, can you eat the flowers?
Yes. We could go into the whole other thing with flowers. Some people make wine from them. Some people make dandelion fritters. Thank you, Shannon. Deep fried, yes. Some people put them in like cookies and stuff. So you can totally eat the flowers. Yeah, kind of however you want.
I also have a question actually, but yeah. I did hear that they are like, they're very healthy because they can absorb more nutrient because their reeds go deeper into the soil. So they could extract more nutrients out of the soil that way and have more iron, protein, magnesium, whatnot. But I don't know how true that is.
Yeah, I would say it's not super nutrient extracting, like it's definitely nutritious, so go for the dandelion. In terms of high amounts of certain nutrients, I think it's vitamins A and C and another one. But yeah, I'm not going for the nutrient content as much as like medicinal, health conditions. So yeah, if anyone has more questions, I'm happy to double check my books and get back to you on things. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap that on dandelion. Does anyone, I don't know, whatever. I'm gonna cross a bridge now, basically. All right, and we're gonna not mute because this is a full-on experiential learning process here. So I'm hoping to cover, actually I have no idea if you can hear me, but we'll pretend you can. Plantain and yellow dock, which is another one of my favorites, at least. Why am I showing you me? All right, we've landed. Thanks. more burdock, all the burdock. It does tend to grow in rocky kind of places and yeah, kind of like disturbed soil sort of thing. Okay. I'm not going to want to talk too much by the river, but I am going to do a quick visual. Actually, can you hear me okay? Because I could just stay here. These things are pretty. All right, when does this go? Should I lose my moderator? Oh. Okay, thanks guys. We're on. So, red clover, Trifolium pratense. So you probably recognize this. You might know of it as being one of the plants in horse's hay mixture. It is nitrogen fixing, so with its deep roots, it will bring up nitrogen from the soil, so that's part of why farmers like it. But to heck with that, why do we care? Well, it can be used as a gentle lymphatic remedy. So what's a lymphatic remedy? Well, your lymphatic system, as you may or may not know, is part of what helps your immune system and your body's health in general. So let's say you injure your arm, your lymphatic system, along with your blood vessels, are going to be helping to bring nutrients into the area, but more so your lymph system clears things out. So let's say you have, tonsillitis. Your tonsils are lymphatic glands that swell up because you're fighting something. So red clover will help you if you have swollen glands, if you have a sluggish lymphatic system. So if you are getting sick or feeling a little slower and stuff, then I would go for red clover. It's also helpful for sore throats, like it's indicated for the throat. And as a tea, for instance, it's great with kids. And that's one of the things. I find that kids seem to like flowers as tea. I'm not sure if that's a flavor. Yes, Shannon, purple equals red. It's called red clover. It looks purple because English is great that way. So the parts you'd use, you'd be collecting, again, the upper aerial parts. So top third, you want to get it while it's in flower, because that's the part that's most useful, is the flower. Sometimes, and I've made this mistake, if you're trying to order online, you might end up ordering red clover leaves, which are not the same flavor at all. And yeah, they're nutritious, but not so pleasant to drink. So red clover. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm trying to buzz through. Okay, 751. Do you use leaves and flowers in tea? Yes, thank you. I find this one most effective as a tea. You can use it as a tincture. But if you're making a tea, you'd want to dry it and then, do the pour boiling water over it, let it steep kind of thing. One thing to note about tea is that some people will do teas as, a 15-minute kind of steeping, and another method is to do an overnight infusion. So a herbalist in the United States, Susan Weed, she is a big proponent of nourishing herbal infusions, and red clover is one of them. She has 4 or 5 that are core to her thoughts about nourishment. And so in that case, you would take an ounce by weight of the dried herb, which, if you want to go the easier way, is about a cup volume-wise. I'm just going to show my hands that cup. And then you'd put that in a jar, like a 1-liter jar, and then pour boiling water over it to fill the 1-liter jar, and then you would leave it overnight. So it'd be infusing for 8 hours, and because of the greater quantity of herb to water ratio, you're going to get a lot of nutrients out of it. Yeah, so it's kind of a quick spiel on red clover. Okay, so for you. And right, look at that sunset. So I'm not sure how much plantain we have here, but there is more red clover. So yeah, red clover tends to grow in fields. So if you're looking for it, not particularly dry areas, but yeah. Let's find a quiet. There's yellow dog. Check it out. And you're like, what? What is this? Okay, here we go. Okay, I guess I need fingers. Ça va, or voici. So I'm not good at French. This is yellow dock. It's currently, I think, just past the flower stage. Let me put my backpack down. I have a better look here. All right. So yellow dock.
Rumex crispus. Here's the top view because we're going to look at it from top. Side view. Yeah, this one you're going to use the root. So Latin name Rumex crispus. So it's got these kind of cute curly leaves. You can tell by the ruffled edges. That's one of the indicators for it. This is also a biennial, similar to Burdock. Notice they both have dock in the name. And so the first year it's going to have that sort of rosette coming out of the ground, and then the second year it goes poof. And I'm pretty sure it makes that sound while it does it, but you know, I haven't really checked. So yeah, so some people will collect the seeds and just, you know, sprinkle them in salads and stuff. I don't know a lot about the medicinal uses of seeds. There's more specifics of like nettle seeds and burdock seeds that are, you know, specifics to that. But I don't know a whole lot about yellow dock seeds, but you can make them. Do not use the leaves because they're a bit too strong. So the root, what do you do with the root? Well, harvest it. And again, similar to burdock, you're going to go the end of the first year in the fall or the beginning of the second year in the spring while the energy is in the root. Why do you want the root? Because two main things I want to point out at least today. One is that it is high in iron. So if you have anemia or need more iron or such things, you would do well to ingest this in a format of decoction. Again, root decoction simmering on the stove. Yeah, and when you do this one on the stove, it turns this like deep brown, and it's, well, I guess kind of an iron color of brown. But anyways, it's this powerful dark brown color, so you can almost see that. This one's also bitter, so you can almost kind of get a 2-in-1 of, you know, drink a bit of this before your meal and you get the bitter action and you get some iron, so that's pretty cool. It has a very bioavailable form of iron, so that can be handy. And the other thing that I really appreciate about this plant, and or you might appreciate, is that it can be useful as a laxative. So there's a constituent of anthraquinones, and that just helps to do a gentle stimulation of the bowels, so that, I don't know much about comparison of laxatives because I don't take them, but it's my understanding that some laxatives are really intense, like they're just painful and too strong. And the nice thing about yellow dock is that it's not too strong. It's like a gentle laxative. Yeah, it's bitter. It can help with liver function. Yeah, so that's yellow dock. You find it, yeah, in fields. I don't know, well, here, you can find it here. You can see them kind of sticking up. Maybe you can't because there's so many other plants. That's fine. Yeah, any questions on yellow dock? Let's see if I can look at the chat. Okay, I think those are red clover questions. Cool. Can I get a quick check from someone? Maybe Linda, you look very attentive / I can actually see you. Did Rebecca leave? Or is Rebecca still here?
Oh, no, I'm still here.
Oh, you are still here. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. My screen all moved, like you guys slowly rotate.
Right.
So I was like, no, I lost Rebecca. Okay, good. Great. Time check, 7:57. Cool. All right. Yellow dock, Rumex crispus.
I do have one question from Chris, and he asks, could you please remind us where you are?
Yeah, for sure. I'm also trying to figure out if my audio is cutting out. But anyway, I am right across from the bridge. So I don't really know what they call the bridge, but that is towards Edinburgh. That is Wellington. And then we're just over the hill, and I'll keep walking and you'll see more. Yeah. Oh, I see. I switched my headphones and my microphone. Great. Thank you, Shannon. Yes, we're in Guelph. All right. Also, for those of you who are in Guelph and are going to be looking forward to doing this walk sometime, I have not been putting the flags in because I'm just not multitasking that. So I will do my best to, I can totally put them in, but I'm not sure I'm going to do the numbers like I said about the event description because I don't really know if the sequence matters. Okay, I said I was going to walk and I apparently was joking. Ha. Check this out. Plantain. So this guy, which, I mean, you probably recognize him anyway, but, or girl, let's not be specific here. Plantago major. So this is the broadleaf plantain. Perhaps self-explanatory, being the leaf is broad. It tends to grow in more rocky, disturbed areas. Some have noted that because it came from Europe, and it basically just followed the progress of white people as they went across North America. And then it started to become used by more indigenous people and stuff. So identifying features, it typically has 5 veins, sometimes more given the size of the leaf, but there's these veins in the middle. And so one way to double check as a plant ID is that if you break the stalk, which we're going to do in a ripping sort of manner, you'll see these lovely stringy things. So that's useful to know. Plantain is another one of my favorites, but really it's so useful. So I will also mention that plantain is useful with both the broadleaf and the narrowleaf. And there are narrowleaf around, but I'm going to try to not get distracted by looking for them, and I'll show you them when I see them in a couple minutes. So plantain, let's go for topical first. So let's say you're out in the woods or your backyard, because those are kind of similar sometimes, and you get stung by a bee or a mosquito. Why do you want to grab plantain? A couple reasons. It has an antihistamine effect. So as you might know, histamines are part of the allergy response. So if you start reacting to the mosquito bite and swelling up and stuff, then this will help to calm that aspect. And it also has some anti-itching aspect to it. So in the actual case of, hey, I just got a mosquito bite, what you're gonna do, because we all love live demonstrations, is take a leaf, possibly brush off dirt, because crunching the grit in between the teeth is, not a thing. Well, it is a thing, but it's not an ideal thing. And then move the tripod carefully. Leaf. And you're chewing it, which I'm pretty sure you don't need a demonstration how to chew, but here we are. Let's call it intermission. Okay, so you're chewing it. Why are you chewing it? To get the plant material to break open. So a poultice is when you apply plant material directly to your body. If you were to strain out the plant material, it would be a fomentation, because we love vocabulary. So this nice gooey blob of plantain leaf. So you just, now I need more demonstration, stick it on your skin and hold it there, or put a band-aid or tape there or something to hold it down, to help draw out that. And so similarly, if you get a wasp sting or a bee sting, assuming the stinger's been removed, you would do the same thing and put it on the area, and it helps to draw out the venom. It has some anti-venom aspects to it, and some astringency to help just tighten the skin. So astringency being tightening and drying, and sort of like drawing the skin together. Okay, so what else? Plantain, topical. So similarly, let's say you are traveling or you really don't like chewing on plantain leaves. Totally fair, I get it. You can make an infused oil with plantain leaves. So the two things, finally getting back to the infused oil, is that you can, okay, is anyone else annoyed that I'm on an angle? Let me just do this. So with an infused oil, there's 2 methods that you can use to make an infused oil. One is the cold infusion, and one is the heat-based infusion. So there's different schools of thought around this, and also different schools of thought around fresh plant material versus dried. I'm not going to get into that tonight, but again, if you want to discuss any of this, feel free to get in touch. Which I keep saying that and I don't tell you how to get in touch with me. My email address is info@plantingradiance.com. We'll also throw that in the chat later. Yeah, so infused oils, the simplest way is to chop the plant while it's fresh, throw it in a jar, pour in some olive oil, and then leave it basically, so it like gently diffuses the plant constituents or ingredients into the oil. Some people say you should leave it in the sun because the sun helps to draw the oil out and helps to warm it up a bit. Some people say you should put it in a cupboard because you don't want oil to go rancid in the sun. So many things and options with herbalism. So another aspect is if you want to do the heated option, that's also faster. So if you're doing a cold infusion, it's going to take a couple weeks, like 4 weeks, for instance. And depending on the mosquito season, you might not want to wait 4 weeks. So the option with the heat infusion would be to put the plant material in the jar, put the oil on top, and then it's basically a double boiler sort of system, so that you would have this glass jar. This is the cheaper way, I guess. Glass jar, mason jar with the plant material and the oil, and then you have a pot on the stove, and the pot has water in it up to the level of the oil in the jar, so that all of the oil has water next to it, kind of thing. And so in between the bottom of the jar and the bottom of the pot, you're going to have something like a steamer or something to keep the bottom of the jar off the bottom of the pot, so that you don't have breaking glass. Yeah, we just don't want breaking glass. So with that, you would bring the water up to a boil and then turn it down to a low-ish simmer. So you have like a gentle rolling boil to keep that heat constant. And in terms of duration of infusing an oil, it does kind of depend on the plant, which is annoying. Like arnica is supposed to take a long time, which I learned the hard way by trying to make an arnica infused oil, and then it was not at all effective because I only did it for 2 hours. In the case of plantain, I'd maybe give it 4 hours. But you can kind of see when it's done. So similar to when you can see when things are cooked, you can see the color change of the oil as it gets more green, and you can see that the plant material gets kind of spent. So it looks darker, kind of lifeless, sometimes crunchy. Yeah, and so one thing to consider when you're considering about fresh plant, dried plant, and infused oils and things is that being recently alive, there's a liquid content to the plant. So if you're doing a hot infusion or a cold infusion, just being aware of the water. So one problem with the cold infusion is that a fresh plant can have enough moisture content to spoil the oil and cause mold. So that's unfortunate, among other things. And so if you do the heat infusion, you're less likely to have spoilage because the heat helps to kill off any mold. So within that also, you can see sometimes that, okay, back up. So let's say you've infused it for 4 hours on the stove, it's looking done, you're good to go. So you take the jar out, you have your jar of nice infused oil and the plant material, then you're going to strain it. Depending on your preference, meticulousness, you can just use a mesh wire strainer, or you can use a tea strainer. You can use a coffee grinder, not coffee grinder, but the coffee filter. Those are obviously very fine filters. And so you're going to strain the plant material out of the oil. And then when you have that resulting clean plant-free oil in a jar, then you might notice there's the oil separated from the water. So when you have that jar of the infused oil, you're going to want to pour off the oil and not keep any of the water. So that means you're going to lose a little bit of oil because you really don't want any water. Yeah. So that's kind of a brief thing on infused oil. Do you close the jar with a lid while in double boiler? That's one of those things. So logically, you don't want steam to get into the jar to get more water in there. But at the same time, because of the heat and the pressure, I wouldn't want to close the lid. So my personal preference is to have the mason jar, and mason jars typically have those whatever lids that go beep boop. Well, they don't make that sound. I did not just say that, but they have that clicky thing for canning, for keeping the tension. So I would just use the metal circle lid of the canning jar and not put the ring around it. So you have that closed offness, but there's no pressure. Like it's not held on. It's just resting there so that if pressure needs to escape, it can, but moisture's not going to go in. Yeah, otherwise plantain as a tea, which whoever thought of drinking plantain as a tea? At least I didn't until I started learning this stuff. It is an amazing diuretic. So in this case, it's a nourishing diuretic, so it's going to help strengthen your kidneys and your urinary system. So that is a really good way to go. And also, if you do have allergies, then if I were you, I'd be drinking more plantain tea to help with reducing the histamine response so that you don't, get so itchy and have so many allergy reaction responses. Yeah, so otherwise, topical use, I already mentioned the drawing, but in terms of a practical application, it can be really handy, surprisingly, for splinters. So because of that astringency and the drawing power, if you have a splinter and you've tried to get it out with tweezers, you missed a part, whatever, or the kid won't let you put tweezers near their foot, you can do a spit poultice, or if you really don't like spitting and chewing things, you could just grind it up. The point is to mash up the plant material so that it can do its job, because if you leave it in a plain leaf without mashing it, it's not able to get the inside of the plant where it's active into the part. So yeah, so you can put on the poultice overnight, throw a Band-Aid on, and it just helps to dry it out overnight. I've also personally found it effective to use bentonite clay as a drying agent, and or activated charcoal, which are not plants, but fun tips. Yeah, so that's my wrap on plantain. Any questions at this point?
We have one question from Sam. He says, does it matter if you harvest the motherwort before, or sorry, I'm looking at earlier. Okay, never mind, no questions. Chris asks, do you use just the leaves?
Yes, in what I'm talking about, yes. Are there uses for the root? Yes, but I'm not going to get into them today because I don't want to overwhelm. Everything that I'm talking about as uses and the plants, there are a lot more uses for these plants, but it's sometimes a fine line between I want to tell you everything and overwhelming you with information such that nothing sticks. Though I will throw in one other thing about plantain. You might know the flowering stalks that come up. So there's my voice giving out, and the flowering stalks, which have the shoot, and you'd think there'd be some in flower. I'll try to find an example, but I'm not sure it's all coming out yet. Anyway, when it goes from flower to seed, you can gather the seeds, and it can also work to help with fiber, and so similar to psyllium husks, which you buy at health food stores. You can use it as a laxative, or you can just throw them on salads and eat them and whatever. So the seeds are great. So yeah, that's my comment on that. Oh, it's 8:10. Okay, moving on.
Yes.
Okay. TikTok, got it. Yeah, so I'm through most of them. I did want to do a shout out to St. John's wort, and I was gonna do cedar, but I might just leave that because it is hitting the time, as they say. Thought I saw chickweed. I think there's mugwort. Try to not get distracted. All the plants, guys. Do this again. Oh, Lisa. Okay, I'll try. To do cedar, for those of you who are not watching the chat. It's very handy. It just throws little chat things on the bottom of my screen. Also sumac, but that's harvestable in August, so we'll not talk about it now because you can't do a whole lot with it now. I will take a moment while I'm strolling down this lovely laneway, which I will show you. So Guelphites, we are hanging here. Yeah, so this is June and a plant walk. I know, surprise, surprise. And I just wanted to note that I'd be happy to do this again. Like, this is really fun, which maybe is obvious. Oh, is there cleavers? Sorry. No way. Oh, I have to talk about cleavers. Okay. Sorry. Okay, let me finish my train of thought. Yeah, so if anyone's interested in doing more of these, whether we're allowed to gather in person because, you know, phase 2 or whatever, or if you want to tune in from Zoom, I would be happy to do this again. Oh, look at you guys. Aw. Okay, let's just do like a quick PSA here. I know there's like so many commercials in the middle of this plant walk. What's up with that? So for those of you who are still with us, which I know some of you had to go, I get it. I want to do a quick survey. So I don't think I'm going to put pressure on Rebecca to throw a poll up. I don't know if she could do a poll survey.
I don't mind doing a poll if you want.
Could you?
Yeah.
Okay. So everyone hang tight for a sec. So the question is, where are you living or like calling in from? So then the options, Rebecca, if we can do Guelph as 1, other parts of Ontario as 2,
Right.
and then number 3 would be outside of Ontario. Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, so once that poll's up, if you guys can let me know where you're coming in from, because, you know, if you're all in Guelph, we should just get together.
Okay.
And if you're from elsewhere, yeah?
Do you mind just repeating the question for me?
Yeah, where are you from?
Okay. And what are the options?
First one, Guelph.
Mm-hmm.
Second one, other Ontario or elsewhere in Ontario.
Yep.
Third one, outside Ontario or outside of Ontario if we want a more proper grammatical. Oh, look at you guys going in the chat. On camera. Okay, well, maybe we didn't need a poll, but thank you guys for throwing the chat. Amazing. Jennifer, you came. Okay, sorry. Like people I know. Okay, and I'm gonna get a copy of the chat transcript after so I can see all your lovely comments, which also means if you have anything to say to me, you can. Hey, why can't I do the poll? Oh, post and poll. Okay, I can't vote. Fine. Anyway, that was a nice boring excerpt, but thank you guys for responding because I'm like, who's here? I don't know you guys, and I'm just really excited. So excited. Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Okay, cleavers. Oh my gosh, I love this plant so much, and you can't even see it. Let's fix that. Thanks, Shannon. Especially fun to watch me poke at my screen. Okay, where did it go? Haha. So this guy, I know I keep saying guy, sorry. This is cleavers as common name. Latin name Gallium aparine. G-A-L-I-U-M-A-P-A-R-I-N-E. So it has the cutest little flowers, which, you know, is a hard choice between chickweed and cleavers, but they're both little white flowers. I don't know how much it'll focus with my lovely dirty fingernails. So 4 petals, white flower. There are other gallium plants, so in the cleavers type family, and like sweet woodruff, for instance. But this one, some people also call sticky willy, because if you grab it, which I really should put a marker in because I don't know if I'll find it again, but it's, to me, the texture feels like a cat's tongue. It's so fascinating, it just like grabs you. You're like, and it just grabs you. Okay, I don't know the words for that. So the flowers are the cute things we saw, and then it goes to these little balls, which are seeds. So you'd want to harvest this plant before it goes to seed. So in this case, bit of a toss-up because you have the flowers and you have the seed. I would still harvest it, but if it's all in seed, then it's not so great. It's not a problem, it's just not as useful. So why do I love cleavers? Honestly, because I really love lymphatic remedies. I don't know what's up with my body, but lymphatics really help me. So this plant grows typically in shady kind of woodland areas. I've also found it thanks to a friend I went on a walk with outside of Homewood down by the river. Yeah, so it grows to, like, this is, you know, I guess that doesn't really help you a whole lot, but in this case it's about 1.5 feet high. The ones I was collecting last week were up to my mid-thigh, which is crazy. And so you're gonna collect, I don't know how much you heard that, loud motorcycle. You're gonna collect the upper aerial parts again, but in this case, you could go pretty low. The thing to note though is that this is an annual plant, so it's gonna come back because of the seeds. Therefore, if you just haul it all out and don't leave any flowers to go to seed or don't leave any seeds, then it's not gonna come back. So there was a great video on Instagram by Cammie McBride who was showing to harvest it above some of the bottom flowers so that you make sure that you're collecting a lot of it, but then you're leaving some of it to regenerate. So as a lymphatic remedy, you can, some people actually juice this, which I'm looking forward to getting my juicer back and trying it sometime. So as a spring tonic, it can help to detoxify the body. You know, we kind of get sluggish over winter with not exercising and, you know, eating more preserved foods sometimes because there's not as much fresh food. Maybe different these days given grocery stores, but in previous days. Yeah, so it's a gentle lymphatic, and it can also be helpful for benign prostate BPH. Hyperplasia, thank you, brain. Yeah, some people consider it helpful for the urinary system, and by some people I mean it can also be used for, not that other people don't think so. Yeah, so I love this plant because I don't even know why necessarily, it feels like my body needs it. So I was really thrilled to collect a pound of it last week, and it is one of those ones that disappears. You know, like dandelion, you can kind of do anytime, really. But cleavers, if you miss the window in May and sometimes June, then you're stuck until the next year. Yeah, so again, upper aerial type parts, you're going to collect it while it's in flower or slightly before flowering. Try not to collect it while it's got seeds. Yeah. Okay, I'm actually not going to throw a flag in because I don't want to make you guys wait while I put a flag in. So, cleavers questions? Anyone?
So Linda asks, the stem too in
Yes.
juice?
Yes. You would basically throw the entire collected plant in. And as I'm drying some right now in my drying rack at home, it's fascinating to see how much faster the leaves dry out than the stems. So yeah, there's apparently more here. Look at it, it's so pretty. There's all these gorgeous little things. Maybe you can't see it, but anyway. We're there. Oh, now it's focused on my finger. Okay, that's enough of that. Cool. Cleavers, yeah. And we're still here. Okay. Time check. I should probably wrap up
10
soon.
minutes.
Oh boy. No pressure.
No pressure.
I feel like I'm chasing these people down. I will also throw concluding comments out towards now while I'm multitasking, walking, and talking, which is that I put my mailing list on my website. So for those of you who are in Guelph or not in Guelph but want to learn more about plants or want to do more of these super fun and slightly hilarious walks, they may be less hilarious as I get more experience or more hilarious as I get more comfortable. You'll have to tune in to find out. But if you go to my website, www.plantingradiance.com, you will see a sign up for my email list. And I promise to not spam you or send an insane amount of emails because I personally do not like trying to keep up with my inbox. So I do not want to force that upon anyone. But I'd love to stay in touch and talk more about plants and conditions. I'm looking at doing some more workshops around different health things in terms of like herbs for eyesight and herbs for colds, and hey, let's all make lotion together. I actually really like making herbal lotion. It's, I don't know, fascinating what you can do at home. I just really love how, since I've started on herbal medicine and learning this stuff, I feel really empowered. You know, before pre-herbal medicine, I'd find I was getting sick a bit, you know, like you feel a cold coming on, whatever, different things with that. And it just was like, oh, there it goes again. Oh, darn, it's coming. And I didn't quite feel like a victim, but I felt like I didn't have a choice in it. You know, it's like, oh, resigned to my fate. I'm getting sick. You know, you'd try and sleep or whatever, but couldn't kick it. But now I notice, you know, okay, my throat's starting to get a bit scratchy. My head feels congested. Okay, starting to get a cold. What do I do? Okay, let's go for the crushed garlic. Eat lots of raw garlic. Okay, let's do ginger tea, more circulatory stimulants. Increase eating consumption of zinc, vitamin C, vitamin D for sure for the immune system. So yeah, the thing that I really love about herbal medicine and kind of want to convey to the world is how empowering it is. It's like, I got an injury. Okay, I'm going to go grab this plant, and then it, you know, it helps. It's just amazing. So that's why I'm here. And that's why I want to keep talking to you and sharing information. And yeah. Okay, sorry, Lisa. I'm probably not going to get to see her tonight, but we can do it next time because it's available all the time, kind of. I'm going to conclude with this one, which I wish was in flower. And that was one of those things when back in January, I thought, hey, I'm going to do a herb walk. So I chose June because I thought more plants would be out. Oh, look, a frog. And they are not out so much because those of you in Ontario know that it was a bit snowy this spring. So this, as I stop looking at the frog, thanks, Lisa. This is St. John's wort. And part of why arguably it doesn't matter that it's in flower is because you've all heard of it before. Okay, maybe not. I'm not going to assume things, but you know, it's kind of talked about as an antidepressant and tea and blah, blah, blah. Thanks, Stephen. So this St. John's wort is Hypericum perforatum. The fun thing about confirming it is Hypericum perforatum is if you take a leaf, and I don't know if this will work on my phone, but let's pretend it will and be all optimistic like. So you have your leaf and you're holding it up to the light. Focus, focus. This may not work out. Come on. Anyway, the point being, if you hold it up to the light and it stays in focus, then you will be able to see little dots through it, which I'm gonna go try and blind myself in the sun to give you a better view. So I'm not gonna talk about St. John's wort as an antidepressant because I kind of feel like it's overdone, or not overdone. It's not that it doesn't work, it's just that's all people seem to really know about it. Okay, so let's try this again. Can I get it? Can I get it? Can you see that? Check it out. Look at those, aren't they cute? Yeah, so you can see those cute little dots or holes, which is actually oil in the leaf, making those little dots. So things that I would like to share about St. John's wort is that as an internal remedy, so generally in tincture form, but you could do tea, but the alcohol extracts it better. There it is. Yeah, it's great for the nervous system. And by the nervous system, in this case, I actually mean the nerves, like physically, sciatica, back pain. You know, you injured your wrist and have tendonitis or something, you need to like strengthen the actual nerves in your body. So you take the tincture and it helps to strengthen and tone the nerves. And then the other thing that I particularly love it for is topically as an oil. So St. John's wort, quick interlude or digression. You're going to be collecting the upper aerial parts, and this one you can basically only get while it's in flower. So that's not yet. Part of why it's called St. John's wort is that it's supposed to flower around solstice, June 21st, which is St. John's Day, or yeah, we'll leave it at that. So you're going to collect it while it's in flower, and you want the buds and the flowers, not the spent flowers, but like the fresh up and coming flowers. So you can see in the leaves a bit, if you grab a leaf again, and then you're going to squeeze it. I guess it didn't show up a whole lot, but there's a dark purple reddish oil. So when you're making an infused oil, you'll see that the flowers leach out this bright red. So if you have olive oil or something, it turns this glorious, deep, beautiful red. You can see it like made a purple scratch on my finger a bit. So that's the hypericin in it. And why would you want the oil? A couple reasons. You can use it topically for nerve pain. So if you break a bone or have an injury, you can use it to nourish from externally for the skin to absorb it. And also, actually both internally and externally, it can help with moving lactic acid. So let's say you go for a run. Some people on this call, I think, are runners. And if you have lactic acid in your muscles and you're really feeling it, the St. John's wort will help to clear the lactic acid and just move it through your body faster to help with recovery. So you can do that tincture internally or topically with the oil. So if you have a sore back, I would highly recommend rubbing this on as an oil. So you, in this case, need the fresh flowers. And I would do it cold infusion and just let it steep itself kind of thing. Yeah, another thing to note as a safety consideration, or another example of why it's important to consider clinical herbalism, not DIY, let's just try stuff. St. John's wort stimulates the liver in the pathway of the P450 chromosome. You'd think I'd still have my words by now, but it's nearing the end of the night and my brain's starting to give out. Anyway, the point being that the liver function increases and speeds up. So if you're taking St. John's wort internally, tea or tincture, while you're taking other medication, it can make the medication less effective because it clears it out of your system faster. The flower color is yellow, Dan. It's like a bright sunny yellow. I wish I had a picture for you. It's actually almost the color of this, which is, this is not St. John's wort. Do not get this confused, but it's like a bright, shiny, happy yellow, not the like deep yellow. Yeah, so just be aware that if you're going to be taking St. John's wort, if you're taking pharmaceutical medication or even birth control, you know, your medication can be rendered less effective by taking St. John's wort. So it's good to be careful of that. Yeah, I think that might be a wrap. I'm not sure if anyone has any more questions or if there's things you want me to go over or anything. I don't know. Let me know.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, please you could unmute yourselves as well now that we're at
Yeah,
the
that'd be
end.
fun. I'd love to hear
Yeah.
from you. Dandelion shirt. Oh, thanks, Sam and Shannon.
Thank you, Zeiss. That was awesome.
Aw, you're welcome.
When will you do another walk?
I'm here, by the way, Guelphites. We are at this spot. Yeah, another walk. I was thinking in July. I'm just figuring out my clinic timing because of, so I'm still in school and we have to do 180 hours of clinic training in year 3 to be in practice doing intakes and, you know, hands-on making tinctures, stuff like that. So we're still scheduling.
Over here with me. Come.
It's a bit of a thing. Rebecca, maybe you can jump on the mute bandwagon for me for a sec. So in terms of when the next one is, I was thinking July. I haven't picked a certain date yet, so sign up for my email list. Or I guess you can follow me on Facebook. I'm not super on Facebook, but I will post the event there. And yeah, I also just want to say, it seems like there's all these comments and people are leaving, but I'm just so grateful to you guys for being here and listening. And I hope you learned some stuff, or at least had fun. And again, my name is Zeiss Millicent, and my website is plantingradiance.com because I just believe in there being more radiance in the world, in health and in how you live your life and all that stuff. So anyway,
Thank you for sharing your world with us.
Yeah.
So much. It was great, Zeiss, and wonderful to see you again.
Thank you. Good to see you guys. I should flip through, see all your faces now that I'm not talking. Hi, guys. Oh my God. Did someone get a screenshot? Judy! Oh my God! Catherine's still here. Oh my God. Sorry. Guys. Oh my God. Like the whole world of everyone I know and love is here. Okay, not everyone, but like, oh my God, thank you guys so much for supporting me. And as a, I don't know, hot trivia fact for those of you who do or don't know, the last time I did a public speech or presentation was 2011. And that was as part of the University of Guelph's last lecture, where I did this big lecture thing in Warmem on campus. And I felt really supported to have so many of my friends and people come and listen and seem to enjoy it. And I kind of feel that way today, that this is
You got to do this more. More.
Shannon, I'm
yes.
Shannon, soapbox. Anyway, I guess I shouldn't be too redundant with the gratitude, but I just
did
really
want to
appreciate
mention
all your guys' support.
Yeah, I also want to mention that if any of you guys do this walk, to please take pictures and then share them on social media and take 2Rivers Festival.
I'm going to send you pictures because I picked up a plant today and I don't know what it is. So I'll send you a picture.
Right.
Thank you so much. Gotta go. Bye.
Okay. Thanks for joining, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Yay.